Yo, how's it going?
Speak of the devil,
Hey, Destiny.
and he shall arrive.
Oh, damn. We said his name 3
policeman
times.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
What's
it.
up?
Hi.
Have a seat. Have a seat,
How
Destiny.
you guys doing, my fellow retards? What's up?
Oh my god, dude. Yikes.
There it
Wow,
is.
dude.
What other ones
Yeah,
do you
yeah,
have that I can use on Twitch that won't?
Real good.
Alright, okay.
What are you
so,
here
gonna say
for,
it.
Destiny? What's up?
He's gonna say it.
I
You
might-
already said it.
Wait,
Um,
go ahead.
okay, what's up?
Oh, well, okay, so I guess more or less what this conversation was about was whether or not, like, what your positions are, why you decided to do it. I know we've all gone over the video, I'm pretty sure everybody here. And you mainly talk about aesthetic and how other people aren't holding themselves to a principled standard. They're doing it for aesthetic, yada, 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 all this stuff. And what I more or less wanted to say was that I don't think anybody in this chat room is going to convince you to stop saying these given words. It seems like your mind is pretty made up on that given position. All I wanted to really do is personally have a conversation around like what standards we can hold public figures up to. And like, for instance, you were talking about the mental toll that some of these things take on you, like being fucked over by various different people in your community and like having snakes around you and shit like that. And it's like, I don't know what that kind of environment is like. So I'm wondering if I'm holding you to or holding people in general to too high of a standard, and whether or not it is right for you to be able to vent it in a certain way, and whether or not I'm right to be able to critique you based on how you vent it. Of course, I think that there is limits to what you should vent, right? I think the ways that you vent can be limited, no? Like, if you were saying...
Yeah, I mean, you can hold anybody to any standard you want. I mean, that's up
Yeah.
to you to figure out, like, should we be able to hold... I think you can hold public creators to certain standards.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's an obvious answer, though. But the question then is, well, why have I changed my standards? I mean, it's probably not a permanent thing. I'm probably just feeling a little angsty right now. My biggest problem is that it feels like nobody really has... I guess, like, the feeling that I'm getting increasingly more and more is that a lot of the standards that people seem to have are just aesthetics. They kind of signal to other people they belong to like a certain club or a certain group that's cool.
Sure.
And that's really the only reason at the end of the day that people have them. I keep running into this really weird thing where like I've made so many arguments throughout my 11 years on streaming for and against the use of homophobic slurs, racist slurs in public settings, not like private jokes, but like publicly should be able to say certain words. Like I've made arguments on both sides of this depending on where I was at in my personal development. And something that's just been incredibly discouraging to me is seeing that basically as long as a slur agrees with you politically, it's okay to use. But if a slur doesn't agree with you politically, then it gets demonized to like hell and back. And seeing like the massive disconnect there has just made me care so little about so much. It's really disheartening for me. Like on one end, like if I have a principled stance on these things, other people's opinions shouldn't bother me, and especially the way that I approach my own community shouldn't bother me. On the other hand, I can only get attacked so much by other communities that literally denigrate me for being a Cuban before I like roll my eyes so hard they fall out of my fucking head, and it's like.
Well, so yeah, that's kind of what I'm like talking about is like whether or not this is an understandable causal event as a result of the circumstances around you or around various, because we talked about various other public figures and things like that, like whether or not like it's an understandable causal effect of these things, and we should just let it play its course and like be like, you know, this is the way that things attempt to manifest itself. Yeah, maybe there's definitely probably better ways to go about venting this frustration. I don't know, but there probably is.
I mean, you can be understandable about something and not necessarily condone it.
Yeah, of
For
course.
instance, there's probably a lot of people that have really good personal experiences for why they're racist, but that you can still you can simultaneously like understand like, oh sure, like okay, I understand why you'd be racist if these experiences happen. That doesn't make your racism acceptable, right?
Yeah,
So much
exactly.
the same way you could say like, oh well, Destiny or Steven, I understand why you might be upset about these particular things, but that still probably doesn't mean you should change your stance on this or have this certain behavior, right?
Yeah, so there is two separate...
My question then, I pose the same thing to you that I did everybody else, is do you maybe just need time to like chill a little bit, or should we compel people to be more principled given maybe public platforms?
I mean, I think you should always compel people to be more principled on public platforms. There are a lot of people that I just don't take seriously saying it anymore, and that bothers me, I guess.
Yeah,
I guess
I think it's definitely justified to like say that like, all right, well, if you're gonna act in that way, then like I don't like have any interest in associating with you or your community, etc. But like anything further than that, I feel like I don't know, like justifying like engaging in that same behavior is not good, right?
I guess I would ask, especially if you recognize that behavior is something you ought not participate in, like, at what point does your frustrations with other people not adhering to like the spirit of that, why should that affect like your behavior if you recognize that it ought not be done?
Well, so all of these things are pretty minor to me in the grand scheme of things, in my opinion. Like, even though online, since none of us have real problems because we're all from the burbs, slurs are like literally the #1 most important social issue that happens online. People tend to fix it. I really don't give a fuck that much about them. We should say slurs. I think there are really good reasons why we shouldn't. But at the end of the day, it's not like a huge deal to me. Like, it's never going to get to the point where like I'm walking around and I'm like, God, dude, because of that last debate I had with Hasan, I fucking hate black people now. Like, I'm never gonna get to that point. But in terms of like hardcore like policing, like if I call somebody retarded or not, like I mean, I don't just it's so hard to not be so insanely apathetic when I have like communities full of lefties like saying I have like Yakubian energy or calling me like weird slurs for Cubans that I didn't even know existed until I interacted with lefties, and then defending it. And then expecting me to adhere to some principled position on language, and then call me racist if I tell someone to like go back to Turkey or whatever. Like that feels like really.
Well, sure, but what that says
like
to me is that you're more mad.
Him, though, right?
Well, yeah. Well, no. To me, it sounds like you're more mad that they abandoned their principles. Than you are about,
they
like,
abandon
the
their principles
itself,
while
right?
simultaneously pretending to adhere to their own principles and then attacking me for not adhering to my own. And the thing is, and this is kind of what I said before, like if I'm going to get constantly shit on for being this racist, ableist, fucking horrible person, well then god damn it, if a Yasuo feeds in my game, I'm gonna call him a retard. Fuck it. Like I might as well like have the freedom to be an asshole if everybody's going to think I'm an asshole anyway, right? To some extent perception is reality, and if the perception is that I'm an ableist shithead, then fuck, maybe if I can at least have the enjoyment of being one.
Sure, but maybe... why does your sort of like grievances with like how other people abandon their principles like justify you doing the same? And like not just that, because I really don't give a fuck at whether or not you're principled, but it's like the sort of like harm that you do to like your community or like other communities when you would decide to engage in that behavior.
Yeah, I don't think the harm is really that much. I think there is a harm. I just don't think it's that great of one.
I feel like it's really easy not to notice.
Sure, it might be, but there's also like way more like conversations about like how we can make places more handicap accessible are probably going to be 50 million times more relevant than if you call somebody a retard because they snipe you in Call of Duty. Like, not to say that these are irrelevant. Like, I think that these are still like decent things to have, but it's just like nobody else online seems to care about it that much, and like the arguments that are thrown around are like
you can't walk and chew gum.
Well, the thing is that like I don't know if you realize this, but like you influence how like your community interacts with other people's community quite a fucking bit. Like
yeah,
and
I
like,
hope they get meaner because everybody else's community is fucking AIDS towards me. Holy shit!
Yeah,
I hope they start bullying some of these
like,
fuckers off the internet.
You're okay with like I don't know, like there's gonna be like collateral damage, like people that you don't want to get hurt that end up getting hurt.
Oh, well, no, because
really
I don't have any friends and I burn every bridge anyway. I don't think you understand what it's like. Like, I have had a literal, like, one of the largest lefty subs on the entire internet has been trying to convert my community nonstop.
This is what I mean. There's a fucking emotional disconnect.
Chapo Trap House unironically had, like, people brigading. I had to ban, like, maybe thousands of people from my subreddit because they would constantly come into my sub,
like people are just saying
like borderline tanky shit, like grift the fuck out of my community to determine. Like I've had people trying to
like people are like just be better
for
that
is riding on the back of my kindness. That like most of my community, believe it or not, still likes Hasan even, and most of my community definitely likes Vaush. Almost all of my community likes most of the big lefties on the internet, but their communities fucking hate mine, and they try to turn my community so hard. And it's like, well, fuck. At some point, like fuck it. If my community wants to go crazy on other people, then why the fuck should I do so much work to protect them when all they do is shit on me?
So here's a.
I feel like that's the same argument Trainwreck makes for his community.
Oh, sure, fine. Yeah, that's fine. Then fucking amen, dude. Go for it. The difference is though is that Trainwreck isn't usually based in reality. Like Trainwreck literally has like LSF mods like in his pocket and shit, and like
sure.
I don't know.
Well, yeah, well, fuck them, right? Let's care about the political specific communities for a second. The facet of communities that you criticize as saying them having you with the Cuban energy and stuff, that facet of their community, is that enough for you to dismiss that community wholesale?
Yes, I don't do the meme where like, oh, that's just a minority of opinions, because it's not. Like if you actually go and you read any of these subreddits, like these are like the massively upvoted opinions on these subreddits. These aren't just like one or two people posting in them.
I think it's a minority. Yeah. I'm saying as one feature of the community, if you were to like list pros and con being that facet, Cuban energy, that perspective, is that enough for you to dismiss that community as being the same as any other?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think it's enough for me.
Okay, so it seems like, and again, this is why I'm saying, should we compel people to be more principled, or you just need to chill for a moment? Are you willing to adapt a similar feature within yourself and your community?
Am I? I mean, I think I already have been. Like, I've been going really hard with that for no reason. Like, I was for a long time, I was one of the only voices in my community that constantly reminded people, hey, don't attack Vaush for being a quote unquote sexual predator. That was a long time ago. Don't do it. Like, I constantly stood up for people. Like, when I had debates against Hasan in the early days, and people were like, oh, he's not a rational debater, Destiny, like, blah, blah, blah. I was like, no, like, chill. Like, I think he's cool. Like, maybe he's not here, blah, blah, blah. Like, I stick up for all sorts of other people in my community all the time.
Doing and saying.
No, they're not. Fuck that shit. Why? If I'm just gonna get constantly ass fucked by other communities, why the fuck would I stick my neck out for these fucking losers? That as soon as they get big, they turn their back and then they...
I don't think that it requires a sacrifice to not engage in that behavior. First of all, and secondly,
no, it does. It requires some amount of like mental concentration or deliberate like attention from me in order to like stick my neck out and defend some of these people, and it makes me look bad when I do it.
I think it makes you look worse.
This throws me back to when like Badbunny and like everybody else was like accusing me of being like sexist and shit. And it's like, if I was like to react the way you were reacting, I feel like it's like, oh, okay, well then like sexism is okay. I'm just gonna like engage in it because fuck it, like it doesn't matter when I'm like constantly speaking out against sexism, etc., and people call me sexist anyways, right? Like, so
okay, but were communities at
that.
large doing that to you? Because I'm pretty sure I had your back during that thing. Like, I literally came out and said like, this is ridiculous, and I had you on my pretty big stream against Badbunny.
Yeah, no, like I know it's like not like comparable to the same degree, but like there are entire communities, like multiple, that like have completely burned bridges over that shit. Like that live
I don't think
person, Mike from PA, Badbunny,
Come
like
on, these are like the same person. Mike from PA and Badbunny were literally fucking each other. That Mike had no choice, right, except for to defend his fucking
Lucid
queen.
Fox, a lot of the people that hang around in that circle, right? Like I don't know, there's a huge fissure and like
and actually maybe because my perspective is different, like being a slightly larger content creator, like maybe for you maybe it would be valid then. I guess like for me, like I look at it a bit differently because I see these as like isolated streamers, whereas it feels like for me like it's entire communities of people have a characterization of me.
So this is why I'd love to ask you a question. If you had two other extremely large political content creators that were not saying these things about you, that were taking that were going about your political opinions in a way that you believed was principled, do you think you'd be having the same reaction?
No, if I felt like I had like at least like one or two other like quasi allies in the space that were like my size, or like other communities that were more chill towards me, I might feel a little bit differently, but it feels pretty lonely out here.
See,
so,
so I think this constantly stems back to, in my opinion, the ways that these communities interact with each other, and not so much like, oh yeah, you need to be taken more, but like simply how does the experience of literally having nobody else inside of your sphere being like, for instance, like just to parallel it back to what Mindwaves is saying, what if nobody of substantial size to be able to combat the arguments against you didn't defend you? Nobody defended you. Like this situation may be entirely different. If you had hundreds of thousands of viewed videos fucking coming up and showing that you were a sexist and things like that, these things may be different. And if there was nobody to defend you, like this, where my position on it is like, yes, it'll probably take you time to get out of it. I mean, you said as much as soon as you came in, but like, I think genuinely, I'm not in that experience. I can't say what it's like to have that amount of shit put on me and then just say, hey, just get over it.
I don't think anybody disagrees with that perspective.
Well, so
I don't necessarily think it's not just like I'm stressed and this is my response. It's more just like an irritation that it doesn't feel like, it feels like a lot of people wear their political positions as like points of pride, or like I guess virtue signaling is the word that people use, and nobody genuinely cares about it. So when I get like held to account for some dumb shit I say by people that have communities that are like sometimes have like, I don't know, it just bothers the fuck out of me.
When you say nobody, are you referring to people that have like large platforms? Because I think everybody and their platforms here have been influenced by you, and then all the conversations that people have on the various panels are also influenced by you, and so they take certain principled positions because that's what they're aiming for, because of you.
And most of the viewers on those panels as well.
Yeah, for sure. And then the smaller, and I swear to God, I'm not trying to talk shit or whatever. Like for the smaller streamers, like that's true. But once you reach a certain size, like if you think that you can like I guess like make it without me, then it's like, okay, well, fuck that person, like time to throw that motherfucker under the bus, and then just like head forward. So yeah, like something that really bothered me, for instance, was like Vaush making some really fucking weird. So like I give a trillion caveats when I talk about Vaush, and I'll do it again, that for the most part I like him a lot more than I like his community, which fucking hates me. But like Vaush, I like even like a day after, less than 24 hours I think, after we had an in-person conversation, was like on his stream saying like, oh well, I think since Destiny's rich now, like all of his political positions are heavily influenced by his class. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like I don't know, like when people say shit like this, it's like whatever, dude.
What does that say about Vaush? Like, what are the implications for Vaush then there, right? Because like he's largely, I imagine, like he's doing pretty fucking well too.
Well, yeah, of course. The guy grew up in Beverly Hills, but like nobody knows that. Nobody cares about that. Like nobody looks at that. And like, and I don't know. I guess that's
quite a bit, but I mean,
sure. But like, if he's honest about that characterization of himself, it's pretty weird to attack me over my class.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like again, like it all feels like aesthetics at the end of the day.
I mean, so I actually watched Vaush's stream where he talked about it, and like the stream after that as well. I'm pretty sure that he said that like he basically extended the argument and said like everybody's political positions are in some way like influenced by their class or whatever. So I think he would say that his position is as well, but he just tries to minimize it. In that sense.
Sure, but in the context of what he was talking about with me, I don't think I'm willing to give that charitable of a take, right? Because he's literally saying things like Destiny has no solutions to any of these problems, blah blah blah.
Oh, yeah,
and then he like kind of like walked that back hardcore with me. He's like, well, I didn't say you didn't have any real solutions, just you didn't have any like structural big solutions, like getting rid of capitalism is what I meant. It's like, okay.
So to stay on top, when it comes to the facet of the communities that you're struggling with right now that frustrates you and agitates you, I would still say, even if you disagree with the way Vaush categorizes you, the principled positions of saying and limiting like slurs, that influence from you still sticks in his community, and his community is growing. So
no, not really though. It's only insofar as like the slurs like are things that you disagree with. But if like a slur comes up that might be like okay, so for instance, making fun of me for being Cuban, or like the Karen thing has been like kind of weird lately. I've had some conversations about that with, and whether you think Karen is good or bad, like there have been some dog shit arguments made regarding it. Like I don't know, like it feels like at the end of the day, or like oh no, and another huge turning point for me was the fucking homophobic shit about Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah, that's
really fucking weird. Like I don't know, like when I start hearing shit like that, and then people are justifying it, it's like, well, he's rich. It's like this guy, I think has like $200,000 to his name. Like, this guy's not rich at all. Yeah, he's like a 30-year-old like mayor of Indiana that was like in the military. His husband's a teacher. This guy's not rich at all. Like he just wears a suit.
Actually,
like,
didn't
I don't
know.
Like,
Bernie is way richer.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. Although Bernie's like really, he made most of his money selling books. I mean, like.
True.
How much do we care that, like, again, stay on topic here. How much do we care that these people operate in such a way, like, that you disagree with? Like, why does that influence what you do? Why isn't there, like, as you say, principles that you stick to and adhere to then?
Because I don't want to feel like I'm running a race that nobody else is running. You ever see Game of Thrones?
A couple times, yeah.
You haven't seen it all?
I have.
Oh, remember when Brahm kills the one dude in the Vale, and he knocks him off, and then Lady Aaron, I don't remember her name. Or no, I think it was her son, talks to Brahm, and she was like, "You don't fight with honor." And then Brahm points to the guy that he just knocked over, and he's like, "Oh, well, he did." Like it feels like if I'm like running a race or I'm stuck in some competition with myself that nobody else really gives a fuck about. Like, why would I put like arbitrary restrictions on what I care about or what I say? Like, I might as well just like make shit up about people, say whatever the fuck I want, and then justify it later anyway, and not worry about it, because it's so much freer. It's so easy to do. Like, and it's. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I've practiced it, like, in a few conversations. I've done it recently. I don't know if people notice as much, but, like, sometimes when I'm talking to somebody, I'll just make shit up. And it feels good, and it's strong, because you can be so confident when you don't know what you're doing.
You just straight lied?
Yeah, because people do it to me. When I'm familiar, like, so, like, when I prepare for debates, and I'm familiar with sources, Nuance Bro did this to me, Eric Strike did this, people bring up sources that I'm familiar with, and they'll just fucking lie about them.
Yeah.
And so now, like, I'll be, like, a little bit more confident, like, oh, no, I'm familiar with that. Like, that's actually not true. It doesn't say that at all. Like, I'll just say that, and then they'll concede the point immediately. It's like, wow, this is actually
really shit, yeah, the power play, dude. I know what you're on about.
There's there's a value to lying. Otherwise, people would do it. That seems to be the obvious.
Yeah, but like
Do
but the
things
thing is that
without value all the time. What the fuck kind of argument is that?
well, the thing is that like it feels like we've moved into a world. So like I hate to talk about him so much because it sounds like really creepy or fixated. But I feel like Hasan has like played this like the perfect way, right? Like he tries to present himself as an everyman, despite the fact that he's a millionaire. He tries to present himself as an incel, despite the fact that he's like a Chad frat boy and has been for the past like 10 years of his life. Like he tries to like make it look like he's just like everybody else and he's stuck in the system and blah 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 blah. You know, like I remember even when he was getting like 3,000 concurrent viewers, he's like, oh, you know, I'm a small streamer or whatever. Like people like play this aesthetic to make people like them or relate to them, even if it's completely and totally removed from reality. And it's like, fuck, like at some point, like why would I do anything different?
So I think if I just
see kappas and fucking pepes and all that bullshit where it's like, yeah, we know you're full of shit though. I mean, I don't know, like that's a level of superficiality and aesthetics that Hasan plays that people don't understand. But we're talking about like actual principal positions and arguments. Like Hasan has removed himself from debating because he's not good at it. So I mean, the principles that would be in that debate, I think, are a different standard than just the aesthetics of him existing as a streamer.
Yeah, but like him existing as a streamer and using aesthetics to get to a certain level was enough to get me like deplatformed off of like the largest like BLM related like podcast on this platform. So that's like, so obviously that's something that I need to take note of, right? If that's going to be something that like threatens my ability to convey a certain political message, like that's something I have to be like aware of.
I think maybe the difference or the disconnect here is that maybe all of us in here would like you to be more like principled and like in the way that you sort of talk and like rhetoric, because we were all influenced by you.
In here, right? Like,
no,
I mean,
but like in general, like your community, right? Your community.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
I think like
Anyone-
most of
anyone
you
who might
guys
be hurt
are pretty
by certain
decent,
type
but
of
there's like man, dude, I think that Lady Rain person I think associates with you guys. Like I think that's one. There's another
associates. That's the best word you could have chosen. Associates.
Yeah, like
that's as
there
far as that shit goes.
What was the name of Izzy Bear? Like there are just like a few people that like, oh god, dude, like people
that
just
aren't
say
here,
like,
that's not an accident.
yeah, I don't know, it's just annoying. I'll probably get
these
over
are all
this.
people that I fucking hate, and then I've had personal like pretty bad reactions with as well.
And then these people hate us.
Their interactions.
Most of them at least.
Is it possible to limit that kind of bad faith behavior, like using lies as bluffs, to just these communities that you disagree with, and then prefacing those talks with that belief that you have?
Well, I think what I'm trying to do right now is I've started blocking like every single lefty. I don't know if I've hit any of you guys yet. I'm sorry, nothing personal, but I'm just starting to block every single like socialist or communist on Twitter, and I'm hoping to like I'm trying to reply guy more to like Steven Crowder or Tim Pool, or go back to like talking about stuff that's more politically relevant. Yeah.
It's
or ideas
just
that
as the optics guy, I just think that like there's a way that you could sell that where you come off really well, where it's like, you know, in the past these communities have done these things, here's a Reddit post about like my justifications behind this, and this is like a closed matter and I'm not going to discuss it anymore. Like I think that's a healthy
I mean,
way.
I did that one time, but like, dude, this like I burnt. Are you familiar with the N-word manifesto?
Yeah, I talked to you about it.
Okay, yeah, that was my
Mindwaves
ultimate accounting for of that. That was like I'm gonna stay up for 12 hours and I'm gonna write down every single part. But dude, I did that much work. That was just for like one single video. Like this happens every day. Book Sparts, I didn't actually get a chance to ask you this. Did you see the video that Peter Coffin made on me?
Oh boy.
I try not to
pretty
watch
bad.
him.
Dude, no, okay, hold on, because when we have a conversation, I don't think you don't realize the level of like insane shit that people claim that I believe. I think that you think that I either
Yes,
over
but he's
exaggerate.
bad faith. I think
But
you.
he's a leading
extend this-
breadtuber guy. Like when he posted that video on
Sure.
BreadTube, everybody
Oh,
fucking
They,
thumbs up
by
at it.
the
Over
way.
400.
They go by they,
what?
them. Peter Coffin goes by they, them. Just to be clear.
Of course.
Oh, okay, my bad.
When you get bored here, this is like dude, just watch like the first like 2 minutes of this and tell me if this feels when I listen to me. Okay, first watch the first 2 minutes of this, and I don't know how much you're familiar with my stream. That's literally my background. Okay, he's pretending to be a Twitch streamer. He's wearing a hoodie and everything. Okay, when I talk to him, them, they open the conversation saying this video wasn't about you.
Yeah, I watched that talk.
Did you? Oh, wait, did you watch the video that I just linked you?
The one where he dresses up with like you in a hoodie and he says all that stuff, and then you confronted him about it, and he's like, "Well, hold on, this is like just for my YouTube."
Yeah.
and,
So again, like,
you know,
I'm
it's
saying, I'm sorry, just to get across the point, like, it's not just random people online that say this, right? It's like actual content creators themselves that are like levying these insane attacks. Yeah.
I think making a list or something of these specific individuals and just limiting your change in aesthetics to those people is probably more responsible or like understandable for people.
True.
I DM'd.
And
I
in that way,
DM'd
it
him.
can just be
Hopefully,
like person
hopefully
by
it'll be
person
easier
instead
in
of
a
like
DM.
situation by situation where you just go, hey, this person's behaving in this way. So for now, this is like a cool down period on the Reddit. We're not going to talk about this. These posts aren't allowed. If this person wants to talk about it in the future and like settle these grievances, I might be open to it. But for now, like, I don't think this is healthy or productive.
I guess. Or it might be easier to just avoid those communities altogether and say fuck them.
Again, this is
Well,
all
yeah, I
different.
think I think that's fair as well. Like, yeah, to say that I don't want to associate with those people is also valid.
Yeah, that's within your rights. But if again, I think the main point, not to get distracted here, is we're worrying about the principles of, say, even lying in debate, and if other people aren't doing it, here's some examples. Peter Coffin, one example of many. I mean, should we work as a goal to compel these people to be better? I mean, if
I would say so, of course, yeah.
Yeah, so I think noting this looks bad on Peter Coffin. For example, I don't consume their content because of that being pointed out. Now, again, I'm just one person. It's an anecdote, but I don't think I am unique in this perspective.
No, yeah, I mean, me too. Like I stopped. I honestly, I was a big fan of Peter Coffin, and I stopped like following him on YouTube after like your talk with him.
Same here. I thought he was just like funny, but touching on the truth. And then I realized that was all kind of a sham.
Okay, so
And
just
if you're worried about bias, you think I hate you. So I mean,
He
Yeah,
also
I watched
recently
you eat a
proved
grilled
that, like,
cheese once, and I was like, oh damn, I think I like grilled cheese now.
okay, so just
Yeah,
to
he
avoid
even
any
recently
hold
proved
on,
that, like,
hold
he
on,
doesn't
just to
even-
avoid us
yeah.
getting like canceled again. They them. They them.
Might be.
Oh, just to be clear, I'm sorry. Somebody linked the tweet. Unless there's a more recent one. Apparently, he's okay with going by whatever. He
Oh,
just
my
wants
bad.
everybody to know he's fine. No,
Oh
it's all
my
good.
bad.
Just-
My bad. Bad on me. Okay, go for it. What were you gonna say, my wish?
No, I was just gonna say that he was like defending turf rhetoric and shit recently as well,
Wait,
which
really?
it goes to show that like they don't even care about like marginalized people
Well,
like they claim
th-
to
that was
when
some-
it's like convenient.
That was something that I found interesting as well, but I mean, it's kind of off topic, but it is kind of part of what Destiny was referring to previously with the homophobic slurs towards Pete Buttigieg, is how individuals can somehow rationalize that slurs can be used against other people because they're not a part of the in-group or they don't get a certain idea.
Exactly.
Right? And I think that's rather bizarre, and I don't know how they would justify that from a principled standpoint necessarily, but something that also that I think is something to that I would like to get people's opinion on, that is on topic, is if the people that I don't know whether or not everybody in here agrees that most there's a lot of big political streamers or whatever like that use aesthetic primarily instead of principle, but it's kind of beyond the point. What could we do realistically that would, I think Destiny would probably be the person that would be capable of doing this more than anybody here, to be able to make those people be more principled, if there's anything that can even be done.
It sounds like we need to grow and call them out.
Yeah,
Well, yeah,
basically.
I
I
think
think just
that's
like
the
making
only-
videos and calling them out. Yeah.
Right. The only thing you can do is like grow your platform larger, have a bigger influence on the sphere, and like point out that like sort of hypocrisy or like shit like that. Yeah.
This is actually a really interesting question I wanted to ask before Destiny joined, but I guess now that you're here, do you people in here think that it could be justified for, now it sounds weird to say Destiny, but like for Destiny to engage in this kind of rhetoric or like say these things if he knows and we can see that it grows his platform to the extent that he would be able to enact more like positive
this
change?
is the question I like.
Should he be able to lie and do bad things
Yeah.
in order to
if
grow
if,
the
if it
platform?
works out, yeah, if it works out better for him and like it creates more positive change in the way
Well,
that
this
we
is
would
always
like to
going to
see
be
it.
like a cost benefit analysis.
of
You're going to
course.
have to look at like, well, what harm is done in the meantime, and is
Yeah.
like, do I think that that's justified?
I think
Well,
And what's
sure,
the-
but like
what's
we
the
can,
time
we can
frame?
all say that some harm is always going to be done by almost like any kind of rhetoric. Like
That's
no matter
true.
like how careful you are.
That's not
I I would say that's pretty. I mean,
it depends on how you quantify harm. Absolutely. By the fact that I say, hold on. By the fact that I just simply say I'm a capitalist, like there's certain people on the left and certain people on the right that are just harmed by simply hearing that I'm a capitalist.
Yeah.
So yes, that is absolutely true. I
love you guys. I just hopped in to bug you for a second. I'm gonna hop back out.
Okay.
You have a
I
great
appreciate
one.
it.
See you.
Yeah,
Thanks for coming.
Yep. I love you guys. Be careful.
Yep.